The massive research vessel hung in Earth's orbit like a silver needle against the black fabric of space. Inside, lead researcher Gray stood before the large observation window, his four eyes blinking in sequence as he studied the blue planet below. His assistant hurried into the room, datapad clutched in their upper hands. "Sir, you need to see this immediately," the assistant said, voice trembling. "The initial scans. They must be wrong." Gray took the pad, his gray skin shifting to a lighter shade as he read the results. According to their most advanced scanning equipment, the humans had already developed quantum computers. Not primitive ones, but fully functional systems that rivaled some of the best in the Galactic Council. "Run the scans again," Gray ordered, even though he knew they had probably already done so dozens of times. "We did, sir, 15 times. The assistant's skin was now almost white with excitement. "And that's not all. Look at their progress timeline." Gray scrolled through the data, his professional calm cracking with each swipe of his finger. The humans had gone from discovering basic electricity to building quantum computers in less than 300 years. It had taken his own species 2,000 years to make the same progress. The Rhinox, widely considered the fastest advancing species in the Council, had needed 1,500 years. "Their advancement curve is impossible," Gray muttered, but the evidence was right there in front of him. "What about their space program?" The assistant pulled up another chart. "They went from their first powered flight to landing on their moon in just 66 years. And now," the assistant paused, clearly struggling to maintain their professional composure, "they're on the verge of cracking FTL travel." Gray nearly dropped the pad. "FTL? Already? That's—" He stopped himself from saying impossible again. The evidence was clear. Humans were achieving the impossible on a regular basis. He turned back to the window, studying Earth with new eyes. From up here, it looked like any other life-bearing world. Blue oceans, white clouds, green and brown landmasses. Nothing about it suggested it had produced a species with such remarkable cognitive capabilities. "Have they detected us yet?" Gray asked. "No, sir. Our cloaking technology is still beyond their current scanning capabilities, though at their rate of progress." The assistant left the sentence unfinished. Gray made a decision. "Contact the Council. We need to move up our timeline. At their current rate of advancement, the humans will discover us on their own within months, maybe weeks. We need to establish first contact now, while we still have some technological advantages to maintain diplomatic leverage." As his assistant hurried off to send the message, Gray continued studying Earth. Something caught his eye. A small flash of light from the planet's surface. He zoomed in using the ship's observation system. It was a test firing of a new type of engine, one that created microscopic distortions in space-time. "They're even closer to FTL than we thought," he whispered to himself. The humans had approached the problem from an angle no other species had considered. Instead of trying to bend space in large sections, they were creating thousands of tiny folds and linking them together. It was elegant, efficient, and completely original. Gray felt a mixture of excitement and unease. In all his years as a xenoresearcher, he had never encountered a species like this. Most civilizations followed predictable patterns of development, building on existing knowledge in logical steps. But humans, they seemed to leap forward in bounds, making connections that should have been impossible with their level of technology. As he prepared for the first contact briefing, Gray couldn't shake the feeling that the Galactic Council was in for a shock. They weren't just meeting another intelligent species, they were about to encounter something entirely new in the galaxy. A species that didn't play by the normal rules of cognitive development. And he had no idea if that was wonderful or terrifying. Blue adjusted the testing chamber's settings for the 5th time, his fingers trembling slightly as he worked the control panel. In his 300 years as the Council's chief intelligence assessor, he had never felt so nervous about a simple species evaluation. The human sat quietly in the testing chamber, looking remarkably calm for someone about to undergo the galaxy's most comprehensive intelligence assessment. Tom was his name, a simple name for what was proving to be anything but a simple species. "The test will begin now," Blue announced through the translator. "Please remember, this is just a standard evaluation. There are no right or wrong answers, only patterns of thought we wish to observe." Tom nodded, offering the small smile. "I understand. Though I have to admit, I'm curious about what kind of tests you use to measure intelligence across different species." Blue began the first sequence, a basic pattern recognition test that most developing species completed in about 30 minutes. Tom finished it in 2. Blue checked the equipment, certain there must be a malfunction. "Is something wrong?" Tom asked, noticing Blue's agitation. No, Blue replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "Let's move on to the next section." He activated the quantum probability maze, a test that usually took advanced species several hours to solve. Tom studied the holographic display for a few moments, then started working through the maze. His fingers moved across the control surface with surprising speed, making connections that shouldn't have been obvious to a species that had just learned about quantum mechanics. 15 minutes later, Tom sat back. Finished. "That was fascinating. The way the quantum states interact reminds me of some theoretical work we've been doing back on Earth." Blue stared at the results in disbelief. Not only had Tom completed the maze in record time, but he had also discovered 3 alternative solutions that the test designers hadn't even considered. "Perhaps we should move to the advanced sections," Blue suggested, his professional demeanor cracking slightly. He activated the final set of tests, problems that had stumped some of the Council's brightest minds. Tom worked through them with the same quick efficiency. As Blue watched, he noticed something extraordinary. Unlike other species who approached problems methodically, Tom seemed to jump between different approaches, combining solutions in ways that shouldn't have made sense, but somehow worked perfectly. "Your testing methods are interesting," Tom commented as he finished the last problem. "Though I think you might be limiting yourselves by separating logical and creative thinking into different categories. In our experience, the best solutions often come from mixing the two." Blue's skin changed to a deep shade of purple, a sign of profound shock in his species. He quickly sent a message to the Council, results impossible to classify using standard metrics. Human cognitive processes operate outside established parameters. The response was immediate. The entire Council would convene to discuss these results, something that hadn't happened for a routine species evaluation in over 1,000 years. "Would you mind if we ran a few more tests?" Blue asked, trying to keep his voice casual. "Perhaps with some of your fellow humans as well." Tom shrugged. "Sure, though I'm probably not the best example you could find. You should talk to some of our scientists and artists. They're the ones doing the really interesting work." Blue felt a shiver run through his body. If this human considered himself average, what would they find when they tested their best and brightest? He thought about the countless species he had tested over the centuries, how their development always followed predictable patterns. The humans were different. They didn't just solve problems. They redefined them, approached them from angles that no other species had considered. As he prepared for more tests, Blue couldn't help but wonder if they were witnessing the emergence of something unprecedented in galactic history. A species that didn't just think outside the box, but seemed unaware that the box existed at all. Green paced back and forth in the research center, surrounded by floating screens displaying test results from hundreds of human subjects. After a month of intensive testing, the patterns they were seeing defied everything they thought they knew about species development. "Play the construction test again," he ordered the computer. A hologram appeared, showing a human named Mike solving what was supposed to be an impossible puzzle. The test involved building a quantum bridge using tools that weren't designed to work together. Most species would try each tool separately, eventually giving up when none worked. But Mike had done something different. He had used 3 tools simultaneously in a way that shouldn't have worked, but somehow did. "Now show subject Rachel's test," Green said. Another hologram appeared, showing a different human approaching the same problem. She solved it too, but in a completely different way. That's what I don't understand, Green muttered to himself. They're not just intelligent. They're adaptable in a way we've never seen before. His assistant entered the room, carrying more data from the latest round of tests. Sir, you need to see these results from the creativity trials. Green took the report and felt his eyes widen. In the creativity tests, humans weren't just scoring high. They were inventing new solutions that the test makers had never imagined. When given a problem, they didn't just solve it. They found dozens of different ways to solve it. Look at this pattern, the assistant said, pointing to a graph. Other species excel in specific areas, the Renox in mathematics, the Pilarians in spatial reasoning. But humans, they excel at everything, Green finished. And not just that, they combine different types of thinking in ways that shouldn't be possible. He walked to the main screen and pulled up a comparison chart. A Renox mathematician might take days to solve a complex equation, but they'll find the perfect solution. A human might find an imperfect solution in minutes, but their solution will work in ways we never considered. The assistant nodded. And when we put them in groups, their abilities don't just add together. They'd multiply, Green said, his voice filled with wonder. One human might have an incomplete idea, another might see a different angle, and together they create something entirely new. He pulled up footage from a recent group test. 5 humans had been given a problem that the Council's best minds had been stuck on for years, designing a more efficient way to store quantum data. Instead of approaching it as a quantum physics problem, the humans had drawn inspiration from Earth's deep-sea creatures, biology, and even ancient human art. They don't respect traditional boundaries between different fields of knowledge, Green explained, more to himself than his assistant. Where we see walls between subjects, they see doors. Maybe even windows they can break if the doors are locked. A notification flashed on his screen. Another human had just completed the impossible construction test. This time, they had solved it by deliberately breaking one tool to modify another. It was messy, unorthodox, and brilliantly effective. Send a message to the Council, Green decided. Tell them we need to rethink everything we know about intelligence. We've been measuring it like it's a straight line, something that goes from simple to complex in predictable steps. But human intelligence. He gestured at the screens around him, showing hundreds of unique solutions to problems that were supposed to be unsolvable. Human intelligence is more like a sphere. They can approach a problem from any angle, from any direction, and somehow they can see connections that our most advanced AI systems miss completely. The assistant looked worried. Should we be concerned? This level of cognitive ability. Green shook his head. I'm not afraid. I'm excited. Do you realize what this means? We've spent thousands of years thinking we knew what intelligence was, how it developed, how it worked. The humans haven't just surprised us. They've shown us that we've been asking the wrong questions all along. As if to prove his point, another notification flashed. A human child had just solved a puzzle that was meant for adult aliens, simply because nobody had told them it was supposed to be difficult. The Grand Council chamber was rarely this crowded. Representatives from over 200 alien species filled the circular room, their voices creating a low hum of nervous conversation. At the center of the chamber, 2 council members faced each other across the speaking platform. Red slammed his hand on the podium, his skin flashing bright crimson with anger. You've all seen the test results. A species that advances this quickly is dangerous. They went from primitive combustion engines to quantum physics in less than 200 years. White stood calmly at her podium, her pale skin glowing softly under the chamber lights. That's exactly why we need them. Their ability to solve problems is precisely what makes them a threat, Red interrupted. They don't think like normal species. They don't follow proper procedures. They break rules we didn't even know could be broken. In the human observation pod, Jack watched the debate with growing concern. As Earth's chosen representative, He had spent the last week listening to various species argue about humanity's fate. Some wanted to welcome humans immediately into the galactic community. Others wanted to quarantine Earth until humans could be properly evaluated. The latest reports from researcher Green are even more alarming, Red continued. They don't just solve problems, they redefine them. They find solutions that shouldn't exist. How long until they redefine us as a problem to be solved? Murmurs spread through the chamber. Jack noticed several representatives nodding in agreement. White raised her hand for silence. I would like to invite Representative Jack to address these concerns directly. Jack felt hundreds of alien eyes turn toward him. He stood up, straightened his simple black suit, and walked to the central platform. Red's skin darkened to a deep burgundy, a sign of disapproval in his species. Members of the council, Jack began, keeping his voice steady. I understand your fears. Humans have a saying. Fear of the unknown is our oldest emotion. But we have another saying. The best way to predict the future is to create it together. He pulled out a small device from his pocket, a standard council data pad that humans had been given upon arrival. In the week since I received this device, our scientists have found 37 ways to improve its efficiency. Not because we wanted to prove our superiority, but because that's what humans do. We see something good and think, how can we make it better? Red's skin pulsed angrily. You prove my point. You can't even hold a piece of technology without trying to change it. We changed it, Jack replied calmly, and we want to share those improvements with everyone. For free. No conditions, no demands. A surprised murmur ran through the chamber. In galactic society, technological advances were carefully guarded and traded like precious resources. Think about what humanity offers, Jack continued. Not just our intelligence, but our diversity of thought. We don't just think outside the box. As you've noticed, we often don't see the box at all. Where you see chaos, we see possibility. Where you see rules, we see guidelines that can be respectfully questioned. He turned to address the entire chamber. Yes, humans advance quickly. Yes, we think differently. But we also value cooperation, friendship, and peace. We're not asking to take over the council. We're asking to join it, to add our voice to your wisdom, to learn from your experience while offering our unique perspective. White's skin brightened with approval. Well spoken. And what would humans do if we refused? If we tried to isolate Earth? Jack smiled slightly. With all due respect, you couldn't. We've already detected 3 flaws in your cloaking technology. We could build our own FTL ships within months, but we'd rather do this the right way, together, as equals. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. Red's skin had turned almost black with shock. White, however, was glowing brighter than ever. Perhaps, she said, the real threat isn't humanity's intelligence, but our own fear of change. We have a choice. Resist the inevitable, or embrace a future filled with new possibilities. As the council members began their formal vote, Jack watched their reactions carefully. One way or another, the galaxy was about to change forever. Emergency alarms blared through the council station. Hundreds of aliens rushed through the corridors, their skin colors shifting with fear and panic. In the main control room, the council's best scientists stared helplessly at the screens showing their worst nightmare. A quantum anomaly had appeared near Centrix Prime, one of the council's most important worlds. The anomaly was growing, threatening to swallow the entire planet within hours. Nothing is working. The lead council scientist shouted, his tentacles writhing in frustration. We've tried every standard procedure. Kate, one of the human scientists recently allowed on the station, stood quietly in the corner. She had been watching the other scientists work for the past hour, her mind racing with ideas that probably broke dozens of scientific rules. May I make a suggestion? She finally asked. The alien scientists turned to look at her. Some showed signs of doubt, others of desperation. The lead scientist waved a tentacle. Speak. Kate walked to the main display. You're all treating this as a quantum physics problem. But what if it's not just that? She pointed to the strange patterns in the anomaly. Look at these energy waves. They remind me of something we see in Earth's oceans. This is no time for irrelevant comparisons, one scientist snapped. What could your primitive oceans possibly have to do with quantum physics? Kate ignored the insult. In our oceans, when two different types of waves meet, they create patterns like this. We call it wave interference. What if this anomaly isn't just quantum energy, but multiple types of energy interacting? The room fell silent. The lead scientist's skin shifted to a thoughtful blue color. But that would mean, he started, that we need to stop trying to cancel out the quantum energy, Kate finished. Instead, we need to add a third type of energy to change the interference pattern. Impossible, another scientist declared. Mixing different types of energy fields is incredibly dangerous. It's never been done. Kate smiled. Actually, we do it on Earth all the time. Not at this scale, but the principle is the same. When our children play with soap bubbles, they're actually manipulating multiple types of energy fields. They just don't know it. She quickly worked at the control panel, pulling up different energy frequencies. Look, if we combine a gravitational wave with an electromagnetic pulse, timed exactly right. The lead scientist's eyes widened as he followed her calculations. This is madness. Brilliant madness. But our equipment isn't designed to generate multiple energy fields simultaneously. Then we'll modify it, Kate said simply. She was already pulling panels off the nearest console. On Earth, we have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. For the next 30 minutes, Kate worked with a small team of alien engineers, rebuilding their equipment in ways that violated at least a dozen safety protocols. The other scientists watched in a mixture of horror and fascination as she connected systems that were never meant to work together. Ready, Kate announced, stepping back from the modified console. We'll only get one shot at this. The timing has to be perfect. The lead scientist looked at the rapidly growing anomaly on the screen, then at Kate's confident expression. Do it. Kate pressed the activation sequence. 3 different energy beams shot out from the station, converging at the edge of the anomaly. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, like a soap bubble popping, the anomaly collapsed in on itself and vanished. The control room erupted in cheers. The lead scientist's skin had turned a bright yellow of joy and in amazement. How did you know this would work? Kate shrugged. I didn't, but I spent my life studying how different things interact. Quantum physics, ocean waves, light patterns, even soap bubbles. Sometimes the best solutions come from seeing connections between things that seem completely different. As the celebration continued around her, Kate noticed several council members watching from the observation deck. Their expressions suggested they were finally beginning to understand what made humans different. It wasn't just their intelligence or their creativity. It was their ability to see patterns where others saw chaos, to find connections between seemingly unrelated things, and most importantly, their willingness to try the impossible simply because no one had told them it couldn't be done. The new Joint Research Center buzzed with activity. What had started as a cautious experiment in cooperation between humans and aliens had transformed into the most productive scientific facility in the galaxy. In just 3 months, they had solved problems that had stumped the Council for centuries. I still don't understand how they do it, muttered a Rhinox scientist, watching a group of humans brainstorming in one of the labs. They jump from idea to idea like space fleas, but somehow it works. The center's director, an experienced alien researcher named Purple, stood beside him. That's exactly why it works. We've always believed that proper research requires following strict steps in a specific order. They watched as the humans drew diagrams on floating screens, connecting ideas from biology, physics, and even art. One of them, a researcher named Mark, was explaining how the flight patterns of Earth butterflies might help improve spacecraft maneuverability. Look at them, Purple said, his skin rippling with excitement. Where we see boundaries between different sciences, they see bridges. When we hit a wall, They simply walk around it, or sometimes straight through it. In another lab, human doctors were working with alien medical experts on a cure for a devastating disease that had plagued the Polarian species for generations. The aliens had spent centuries studying the disease's quantum structure. The humans suggested looking at how Earth's immune systems dealt with similar patterns. It's not just their ideas, Purple continued. It's how freely they share them. No holding back, no political games. They just want to solve problems. A young human researcher named Alex rushed up to them, practically bouncing with excitement. Director, we did it. The translation matrix. We figured out why it was having problems with emotional context. Purple's skin shifted to a curious shade of violet. The universal translators had worked fine for literal meanings, but they had always struggled with conveying emotions and subtle meanings across species. How did you solve it? He asked. We stopped treating it as a language problem. Alex explained. Instead, we looked at how different species express emotions through color changes, pheromones, and body language. Then we applied some principles from Earth's music theory about harmony and discord. Purple blinked all four of his eyes. Music theory, for a translation problem. Why not? Alex grinned. Communication is all about patterns, just like music. We just had to find the right way to help different patterns work together. In the engineering lab, similar breakthroughs were happening. Human engineers had taken alien technology and modified it in ways that seemed impossible, or even ridiculous, until they worked. They combined technologies that no one had ever thought to combine, creating hybrid systems that were more efficient than anything seen before. They've completely changed how we approach problem solving, Purple said to his Renox colleague. Last week, I caught myself asking, what would a human do when I hit a research problem? And you know what? It helped. The Rhinox scientist nodded. I've noticed something else too. We're all starting to think differently. Not just copying the humans, but learning to be more flexible in our thinking. A commotion from the medical lab drew their attention. The team working on the Polarian disease was celebrating. They had found a cure. Not by following the traditional research paths, but by combining alien quantum science with insights from Earth's smallest organisms. Purple watched as humans and aliens hugged, their skin colors shifting in joy. 3 months ago, such casual physical contact between species would have been unthinkable. Now it felt natural. Perhaps, Purple said thoughtfully, this is the humans' greatest gift to us. Not just their solutions, but their way of finding solutions. They're teaching us that the best answer often lies in the last place you'd think to look. As if to prove his point, a human child, one of the researcher's daughters, wandered into the lab and asked a question about faster-than-light travel that made everyone stop and rethink their basic assumptions about physics. The galaxy was changing, one impossible idea at a time. And somehow, that felt exactly right. 1 year after first contact, the Grand Council chamber looked very different. The once rigid seating arrangements had been reorganized into a more open pattern, a small but significant change that symbolized the bigger changes happening throughout galactic society. At the center of the chamber stood Jack, now serving as Earth's official representative to the Council. Beside him stood Red, his formerly crimson skin now a warm orange shade that showed acceptance and respect. If someone had told me a year ago that I would be standing here supporting human integration, Red addressed the chamber, I would have thought they were crazy. I was wrong. We were all wrong, not just about humans, but about what intelligence truly means. The chamber's screens displayed achievements from the past year. Diseases cured, technological breakthroughs, and most importantly, new ways of thinking that had spread throughout galactic society. Humans didn't just join our community, White added from her position. They taught us to question everything we thought we knew. Not out of disrespect, but out of curiosity. That uniquely human drive to ask what if and why not. Jack stepped forward. We came to the stars hoping to learn from you, and we have learned so much. But we discovered something unexpected, that sometimes the best teacher is the student who asks the questions nobody thought to ask before. The screen showed scenes from across the galaxy, human children playing with alien children, sharing that boundless curiosity that adults often forgot. Human scientists working alongside alien researchers, combining different approaches to solve problems. Human artists collaborating with alien artists, creating new forms of expression that crossed species boundaries. Look at what we've achieved together, Jack continued. Our quantum physics combined with Rhinox mathematics has revolutionized space travel. Human medicine working with Polarian biology has cured diseases that plagued us both. But most importantly, we've learned from each other. A young alien scientist stepped forward, one who had worked closely with humans over the past year. They taught us that intelligence isn't just about knowing things, she said. It's about being willing to unknow things, to look at a problem and say, maybe everything I know about this is wrong, and start fresh. The chamber erupted in agreement. Species that had once competed now worked together, sharing knowledge and perspectives in ways that would have been unthinkable a year ago. But the greatest change, White said, her glow brightening, is in how we see ourselves. Humans showed us that advancement doesn't have to mean losing who you are. They value their emotions, their art, their music, even as they push the boundaries of science. Jack nodded. On Earth, we have a saying, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Together, we're not just adding our knowledge, we're multiplying it. Every species brings something unique to this alliance. Red stepped forward again. Therefore, I propose a new role for humanity in the Council, not just as members, but as bridges between different ways of thinking. Their ability to see connections where we see only barriers makes them uniquely suited to help us all work together. The vote was unanimous, a first in Council history. Humans would serve as special advisors to all Council projects, not to direct them, but to ask the questions that needed to be asked, to suggest the connections others might miss. As the chamber celebrated, Jack watched the screen showing scenes from across the galaxy. On a distant world, a human engineer and an alien architect were designing buildings that defied conventional physics. In a space station laboratory, a human artist was helping alien scientists visualize complex quantum interactions in new ways. And in a classroom somewhere, a human child and an alien child were inventing a new game that would probably end up teaching everyone something unexpected. The galaxy was never meant to be conquered, Jack said quietly. It was meant to be understood. And understanding only comes when we're brave enough to admit that our way of thinking isn't the only way. The future stretched out before them, full of endless possibilities, not because humans were smarter, but because they had helped everyone remember how to be curious.